There you go.
Okay. Okay. So, how much do customers usually save in energy costs over time while using your products compared to the best or better or an average?
Well, the reality it comes down to is how it gets put together. You're building a home or you're building a building. A home's got a million parts.
Yeah.
A building like this has more. So how well that's put together and how it's put together has a big impact on it. But, and there's other building materials that are as sustainable as ours and can be as efficient. So I guess my answer to that is, how much can you save by doing things in a sustainable manner in your home, building your home, or operating your home in a sustainable manner? So I mentioned before that we have these codes, these energy codes and things like that. Recently I did an analysis we did for a lobbying piece we did for the federal government to try to get them to enforce the energy code in this country, which has been really lax for a very long time of them not enforcing it. And what I did was I built a home to the 2006 energy code versus the 2009 energy code. Now, those seem like ancient history to you, 2006 and 2009. Most of the country are still running on those years. Okay, it's 10 years behind. So a home, say a 3-bedroom home built here in the Great Valley School District, to the 2006 code versus the 2009 energy code. The 2009 energy code would cost about another $6,000 to build that house. Okay, $6,000 on a 30-year fixed mortgage at today's interest rates is about $4 a month. The difference between those two houses, that $4 a month you're spending will make you about $38 a month. Because you're going to spend basically $42 a month less in energy. So just by doing the right thing, you're actually making money because you're borrowing it. So that's often the case when I try to help people understand in terms of sustainability. A sustainable, high-performing home may cost you more up front. It's actually going to cost you less to own. It's going to cost you less per month, believe it or not, than a less expensive home would cost. Because by the time you figure in your energy bills and everything else with the mortgage of that home, all of a sudden you find out that, yeah, you're paying less on a mortgage, but you're paying another $100 a month on gas or electricity, or it adds up. You go, ooh, it was actually cheaper to build a more sustainable home. Okay. And so that's the kind of life cycle assessment which we often run. I run energy modeling, we call it, on a home. I can tell you within $1 what your energy bill will be per month on any home you build anywhere in this world based upon the model I built in the computer. And that's we use that to help people understand how doing little things like going to this building has 100% LED lighting. If you were to switch your home to 100% LED lighting tomorrow, I could tell you exactly what that will cost you to do, how much your energy bill will be each month, and backwards we can go back and figure out what your return on your investment is. And I promise you would actually probably pay off in about 3 years. And after that, you'd be positive in making money. So those are the kind of mechanisms we use to help people understand how to do that. But the fact is, it's not just us. I mean, I wish we were the only ones that had materials that could do this. The stuff you grab off the shelf tomorrow can do it for you if you know what you're doing. That's the knowledge that we go through cycles of knowledge in, I think, all cultures. In our culture, construction knowledge was really low a few years ago, and now it's coming back up again because of emphasis on things like this. So it'll get better, but again, any materials can do it. It's a matter of having the knowledge to do it properly.
Okay. Does this company receive any tax benefits or subsidies from the government because of its environmentally friendly practices?
No. I wish we did. We do get some offsets in our production facilities on energy prices based upon how we'll take the energy. It sounds like a strange thing, but you can actually shop for energy, and you can shop for times of day when you take energy. Energy is less expensive in the middle of the night than it is during the day, things like that. So we do work with states and local utilities because, frankly, we'll consume millions of dollars a month just in energy in our factories. And so we shop for energy that way. And that's one of the few places that I guess we might say we get it's not really a subsidy or anything like that. Any utility will do this with you when you're a large consumer. And we do that in a very smart way. We play in the energy market on how we purchase our energy to make sure. We don't get any subsidies other than, no subsidies at all. The only thing we get for building this building is the plaques out front and the ability to stand in front of you and stand in front of our customers and say, you can do this tomorrow with off-the-shelf products. Here's how you do it. And so it's a proof of concept, or proof of point, walking the talk, if you will, for lack of a better term, that you have to do it if you're going to be a building materials manufacturer to prove that you're quite serious about this in our economy today.
So, did you see any like fluctuations in sales as environmental policy changes throughout the years, and with like new presidential administrations and like the policy becoming less strict? Like, have the sales increased in recent years because the consumers like are more like environmentally friendly?
What we call the SKUs have changed, which is the manufacturing SKUs are, this has an SKU, this has an SKU, it's a number that identifies a product. The products we have changed because of those policies. Materials like R11 bats aren't allowed anymore because it's now R13 and 15 in walls. So those kinds of policies have changed the products that we make, as people are required to use different kinds of materials. Environmental policies have never been strong in this country. OSHA and the EPA are very good on location policies and enforcement and things like that. But in regards to the built world, there's 110 million buildings in America, and it's horrible in regards to enforcement or things like that. It's been very little influence. We have fought every year at the lobbying and policy-making level to improve the standards in this country. And almost every year that we get some ground and we move forward, we get pushed back by lobbyists from other perspectives, such as the National Association of Home Builders, who are partners of ours. However, their interest is to keep the home cost low. And if we're talking about something that will increase the cost of a home by $300, they will fight tooth and nail to stop us. Even though we're showing that $300 is going to get paid back in 3 or 4 years, and actual people are going to have more money going forward and be better at paying their mortgage and be better customers, they don't want that. It's an upfront thing they're totally focused on. So we deal more with that. We've not really seen an impact thus far in terms of our materials and our products. Globally, yes. We're a COP22 signer. We're committed to greenhouse gas reduction around the world. We're committed as a corporation to all these things. So also it's a little bit embarrassing for us worldwide when our own country is going, no, when we take mentions of global warming off the EPA's page and all that just ridiculous stuff which has happened recently, the information is being removed. Information should never be removed. More should be added no matter what it is. So you have a broader perspective. So that's affecting us internationally because now, people aren't necessarily as eager to talk to us here about our materials. When the economy was booming in Brazil, as an example, and things were during the recession here, we shipped a lot of material into Brazil because they needed the material. Right now, they probably go, yeah, we'd rather get it from Australia because they're mad at us. They're mad at us as a country. They're mad at us as a people about this has happened. The world is mad at us, So we've seen this change internationally. We've seen the impact on us globally, but not here in the U.S. Here in the U.S., it's business as usual. This hasn't influenced us whatsoever. It'll change the products we're making, but right now there's nothing driving good top-down change, and that's usually what moves the needle here is some kind of top-down mandate. There's been very few organic movements up that have changed the built environment. LEED is one that has kind of come up that has changed the built environment to a degree, but if you look at the most changes occurred, it's happened in California. That's because of Title 24, which is the name of their building code. It's a top-down mandate that forces it. Again, we have this problem here with me versus we. We never do stuff for the greater good of our communities. We rarely do. Very few people have that in them. Most of us, though, will jump when you tell us that we can improve your home or your family's life or things like that. That will respond to. And that's usually the influences that will hit us first here is ones that happen in families and stuff like that. When all of a sudden there's a huge epidemic of, say, childhood allergies with regards to a certain thing, boom, we got to react immediately because we're making that environment. Those things turn the ship very, very quickly. There's not really other influences on us too much that have that kind of immediate impact.
So even with the seemingly increase in environmental consciousness with consumers in recent years, that hasn't really changed?
It's not, it's more in alignment with us philosophically, and we love that. We love everyone kind of agreeing that this stuff is really important. But ironically, when we look into the marketplace, if we look at the consumers, the number one consumers of green sustainable buildings are 55 plus. That's a small demographic.
Yeah.
It's not moving the marketplace. Now, when you guys become first-time home, second, third-time home buyers, then it'll have a much greater velocity or acceleration of rate of change. But currently, most sustainable things, because they tend to be more expensive. If you look at electric cars, who's buying electric cars? It's not you guys.
Yeah.
It's not the 30-year-olds. It's the 15 to 60-year-olds. And that group is not that big. So you guys are a much bigger part of the curve. So your impact will be much greater than the part at the top right now. And that's been because of the prices. The prices were not geared towards, entry-level homes, entry-level cars. These kinds of technologies are still somewhat expensive. up front, and that's what, lower cost to own. You guys are the first ones that should be driving these kinds of vehicles and buying these kinds of vehicles, but there's a cost barrier for you, so it's got to get, it's got to get changed a little bit over time.
Right. So how did the sales of your products, how are they affected during the recession?
Oh, terribly.
Right.
Yeah, the construction market in general, not only was the construction market off by 60%, the prices got eroded down to nothing. We were actually making materials that cost us every day to make them. We were losing money before we ever even tried to sell them. And why do we do that? Because we have 19,000 people we have to keep employed. We have factories we need to keep open. So we actually hemorrhaged money, millions of dollars per week through the recession to keep our factories running and keep our people going and keep the business ready. And fortunately, we're a large enough company to do that. And we had profit centers that were making, millions of dollars per week in other areas. And even within the company, insulation, gypsum, and things like that to go into new commercial constructions or new homes when they're first built, died. We're off. But you know what went up? Roofing. Why? Because in the last 6 years, we've had more significant storms than we ever had before. Those storms tear up roofs. Every hailstorm is a new roof. We had a hailstorm that went through Minnesota last 2 or 3 years ago. We sold 1,000 truckloads of shingles right down the length of that storm. So things like that kept big profit happening in the meantime, but overall, our profit was way, way down. We never lost money, but our profit was way, way down because of the recession. It had significant impact on new construction starts and on renovation and the money people were spending. Everyone, including your school, limped along, put Band-Aids on things. Everyone did until the money came back in and they felt pretty good and they can start fixing things properly. And that's the stage we're in right now. Things are getting back to getting fixed properly and new construction starting back up in earnest in both residential and commercial for sure.
So how did the initial costs of your sustainable products compare to those of your competitors whose products are not focused around sustainability?
You could say that, I guess in general, you could say that in a lot of cases it would be 40 to 50% more expensive than that low-cost provider would be, say, for the same shingle or the same piece of gypsum wallboard or the same ceiling tile. But what you'll find is that, well, maybe on the wallboard they look the same, but the ceiling tiles don't look the same, the roof doesn't look the same. I mean, I can drive through neighborhoods right now and almost tell you how much someone paid for the roof based on how much shadow I see between the shingles. It tells me how thick it is, how much weight of shingle is there, and what they paid for. So there's a difference, but they're never apples to apples. The products are not the same. You can't make our product that cheaply. And so you're going to pay 40% more to get the better product. But again, if you do a life cycle assessment of the ownership of that, the roof, I live in Charlestown. I've got a Certainty Landmark roof. That's a 100-year roof. My neighbors, they're going to replace their roof 2 or 3 times at $30,000 a pop. Why would you do that when you could just spend an extra $30,000 the first time and be done with it? And so that's kind of what it's about. Life cycle assessment will show that those less expensive products are not cheaper to own. They're just cheaper to buy.
So you said that over time, like sustainable products would just be like products.
Yeah.
How long do you think that will take?
Well, obviously it depends upon the industry. In some industries, they're already there. Electronics are already there, right? They've already become equal. In wood products, they're getting really close right now. It's industry-specific thing.
Right.
Some things might never get there, just because of technology that can be developed within that circle. But for building materials, I would hope that the USGBC's LEED program doesn't exist 10 years from now or 20 years from now. I hope it doesn't have to. I hope that we've incorporated all of that behavior into our normal practices, and we don't need it. It was meant to move us. Hopefully by then we've moved, and it's just our everyday practice today. Our everyday practice today is completely different than it was even 20 years ago. It's so much better, but it's got a long way to go. I think we can get there in 20 years, at least in the built environment.
Right.
So with the high initial costs but savings over time, do you have maybe a time range that it would take a consumer to break even?
Depends upon what you're going after. If you're going after energy-saving things today, some of it can be as little as 3 or 4 years. If you're talking about an existing structure. But again, I already gave you the example of if we took a new structure, it can cost you less tomorrow because you're borrowing the money. If it's money out of your pocket, there's a return on investment. You have to calculate how long it will take you for that money to come back into your pocket. If you're borrowing that money, It's nothing errors, so don't worry about it. Think about how much it's going to cost you to pay that money back. Again, in that example, building a home to the 2009 code versus the 2006 code actually made $38 a month out of thin air because they borrowed the money. So in upfront new construction, very often it's less expensive right out of the gate. And today you have energy efficient mortgages and things like that are available. You can borrow money at lower rates because you're doing the right things. And we should expect to see more of that kind of thing going on. Sustainability in terms of the built environment has to hit a couple other things yet. One is the realtors market, because realtors have no idea what you're talking about trying to sell a very sustainable house versus one it's not. They can't properly present the information to the consumer to educate the consumer. And so they need a lot of help getting there. The banking industry and the insurance industries are starting to get there now. Insurance industries are realizing that this building has a lot less liability than a normal building does for them, so they can insure it at lower rates. Same thing with the mortgage lenders and things like that. They're offering energy efficiency mortgages now, because just like the example I gave you previously was saving $38 a month for generating it, that's $38 a month more you have to pay your mortgage. They're more than happy to help you do that because you're going to default at a much lower rate than someone who's in an energy inefficient building. I think it was a disgusting statistic I saw during the Great Recession that roughly 50% of the senior citizens who became homeless during the recession happened because they lost their mortgages and were evicted because they couldn't pay their energy bills. Most mortgage companies will yank your mortgage if you lose your heat because the building will degrade. And so 50% of our seniors on fixed incomes who couldn't afford the energy volatility of the last 6 years lost their homes. And that sort of thing, you go, oh my gosh, what's the cost to our society? What else we have to fix? It's like, so if you can insulate, we talk about all these things being available to the higher incomes. It has to be available at the opposite end of the spectrum. Low income is the most in desperate need of healthy housing and low energy costs. When a child has asthma from a home environment, goes to school or is sick and can't go to school, has to come home, guess who comes home too? A parent who's not at work that day. The impact on the low income part of our spectrum is horrible with regards to bad environment, bad energy. That's where it's got to go. Right now it's up here with those who can afford it. It's filtering out down through the middle class. It has to get shoved down through lower class, lower income, because that's who needs it the most. That's our biggest challenge.
Right. So how do you think we can, it's just over time, is the sustainable products are going to cost less, or do you think we can do something now to get the low income?
We're doing it now. We're forcing it down HUD and other people's throats to have them realize it. Here locally, we work with Youth Build, who is, I don't know if you remember that program, and they're in Philadelphia and a bunch of other places. They take kids who dropped out of school and have 1 foot in the criminal system and 1 foot out in the street and pull them back into school to get their degree and teach them a trade and teach them construction. We have built 2 LEED Platinum built houses in Philadelphia, one in Nicetown, one in East Germantown, that were boarded up crack houses. And we turned them into LEED Platinum houses that have 2 units within, one for the homeowner. They basically, both these houses were sold to a low income person, and the mortgages and the houses are built such that they can actually lease an apartment within their own home that'll pay their mortgage. And so they're now basically in totally green LEED Platinum homes that are paying for themselves. And these were crack houses. So it's a way to show that, and we did this with urban development money at standard prices. These weren't that much more expensive than redeveloping another existing rundown home in Philadelphia. So we've been doing it with them to prove. We've done it in Philadelphia, in Schenectady, New York, in Akron, Ohio, Worcester, Massachusetts, a bunch of places. Now we're in South Africa, going worldwide with this whole thing, trying to show these large urban areas that have a large proportion of lower income people that the money you're spending right now as, say, an urban development organization, Philadelphia has a bunch of them, you're just putting band-aids on people that are hemorrhaging. It's not working. You're giving them assistance to pay for heat in a home that is using 10 times more heat than it should be. Take that same money and fix the home, and they won't be asking for that money every year again. So those are the things that we're working with the large urban, housing responsibilities and authorities to help them understand and fix. And using grant programs, sometimes they kickstart them by getting materials in their hands and doing what we have to kickstart them to get them to see it.
Right. So you mentioned a little bit about how environmentally friendly businesses have changed over time. Can you expand how it was, if you can't really compete in this market without being environmentally friendly?
Yeah, initially there was a lot of greenwashing, and you got away with it. People took everything brown and painted it green and said, hey, we got this great green building product, and they got away with it. Spray foam, as an example, spray foam insulation. People were arguing was a local material, because technically it was manufactured when Part A and Part B mixed in the gun tip of the guy who was spraying in the wall. Problem is, Part A came from Saudi Arabia, and Part B came from Houston, Texas. It's not a regional material. And those are the kind of things that we call that greenwashing. Initially, there was an awful lot of greenwashing that took place. It's been caught and corrected by litigation rules and definitions. And so that's what's kind of cleaned up a lot of that stuff and forced everyone to actually get green or just admit outright that, no, this isn't green. And again, if you're going to come out outright and say, no, this isn't green, you will miss out on at least 40% of the construction in America today. At least 40% of the construction going down is going to a sustainability stretch program like LEED, BRAIN, Green Globes, Living Building Challenge, you name it. There's so many out. The WELL standard, which is a new one. There's so many flavors of sustainability out there in the built market, the built space, that you're not going to play there. The federal government, the state governments, any school district, any hospital, you're not touching any of that work. Any university, you're not touching any of that if you don't have sustainable building materials. They all require it. Sustainable purchasing programs are what we've been driving in this country to get this going. Sustainable purchasing, sustainable management, sustainable housekeeping. All of it has to be taught to organizations so that they can do this going forward. But once it's in place, most universities have a commitment. When you go to your school, and for years, you're going to find out all about their commitments, and you're going to sign a line agreeing to their policies on their properties, that didn't exist before. So it's all happening and getting driven down. But sustainable purchasing is an actually fascinating topic you can go into for days to learn about how that's evolving. We're trying to work on creating a social media campaign around sustainable purchasing for homeowners. Do you realize these things that you're buying, what they do to your home? Do you realize that using the pink sweetener, actually no, it's the blue one, the blue sweetener, you guys like the blue sweetener? Don't ever put it in a hot drink, because when you put it in a hot drink and then you ingest it, you emit formaldehyde. So formaldehyde is a class 1 human carcinogen. The sweetener doesn't do it. It's when you use the sweetener in your body it does it. These are the things that we're trying to educate people on, saying that, hey, in an old building that leaked air where the window curtains billowed every time the wind blew, even when the window closed, you could get away with that. You had a lot of accidental fresh air. The building code today requires super tight envelopes. You can't buy that stuff going forward. So we're having to educate everybody about how to operate these spaces and keep it clean is a big part. But sustainable purchasing can drive a lot of it. And that's what we've done with universities and healthcare and everything else. You're not sustainable when you don't get into Temple University or St. Joe or anyone. Every summer they're going to buy truckloads of gypsum board to repair all the holes in the walls in the dormitories. You don't get that order unless you're sustainable today.
Right.
We'll take